Hello everybody, Bengalatunji here. Today we shall be looking at strategy. Strategy Module 1 precisely. Taking a look at strategy definition, especially strategy as defined by Chandler Drucker and the GSW, that is Johnson, SCHOLES and Whittington. What do they have to say about the subjects of strategy? Also, we shall go into strategic management and also the element we can find in strategic management. We shall define mission, vision, goal, aim and objective and their differences. Also, we shall look at the differences between strategic management, strategic planning, corporate planning, long-term planning. All these are interrelated, but at the same time they are different. We will go into the world of stakeholders management using Mendelow's theory. Also, we will take a look at corporate strategy, business strategy, and functional strategy. I think now we can go into the subject matter. Okay, strategy as defined by Chandler. Strategy as defined by Chandler. Okay? Chandler said basic long-term goal and objectives of an enterprise must be covered by a strategy and the adoption of the course of action. Also, by Chandler's definition, strategy involves or includes the allocation of resources necessary for carrying out the goal of strategy. So, meaning by its definition, a strategy look at the future, organize resources to achieve a goal as defined by Chandler. And as we continue, we'll see that there are some words that will continue to pop up when we are talking about strategy. So this is definition of strategy by Chandler. Let me come again slowly and I read from my notes. As defined by Chandler in 1962, the determination of basic long-term goal objectives of an enterprise and the adoption of the course of action and the allocation of resource necessary for carrying out the goal is strategy. Another contributor that must not be neglected is Drucker. So, how did Drucker define strategy? To Drucker, strategy is a pattern of activity that seek to achieve the objective of the organization. pattern of activity that seek to achieve the objective of an organization. That simply means every organization must have at least an objective and adapt its scope, resources, and operations to environmental changes in the long term. So, Drucker has included some other things which were not mentioned by Chandler. So, in defining strategy, he simply saying strategy is an organized activity, and that is fantastic. Strategy is an organized activity. That is, when we want to achieve something, a goal, business-wise, personally, or otherwise, organization is key. That is, putting things together in an orderly manner. So this is part of the definition of strategy, especially as pinpointed by Drucker. Also, purposeful activity aimed at achieving objective. Purposeful activity aimed at achieving an objective. So we are simply saying every organization must be purposeful. Purposeful about its existence and what they intend to carry out and achieve. Strategy also involves long-term thinking. Long-term thinking. But it's important for us not to put everything on long term, because by the time we begin to examine the differences between all these strategic planning, strategic management, long-term planning, we will see that long-term will not only stand the test of time, because it should be common among them. So, when we're talking about strategy, long-term is involved, but it's not the only necessary criteria for something to be categorized as strategy. That could be long-term planning. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay? Strategy also is about choices. Choices. And this is key when we are talking about strategy. It's an identifier when we are talking about strategy. It involves strategic choices, and these happen at the topmost of the organization. Strategic choices. Which industry do we want to go? Which client, which customer do we want to serve? And what products do we want to be making? These are strategic choices that must be made. Strategy also involves changing business environments and being able to scan through it on time and proactively position ourselves. So that is strategy as defined by Drucker. And last but not the least of the element that Drucker mentioned is strategy involves enterprise responding proactively to changes in environment, just as I had mentioned. So let us move on. Strategy as defined by Chandler. So these are the elements that Chandler gave us when we are talking about strategy. A company that is strategically planning for future, at least let's say 5 years, we ask some basic or fundamental questions and must be able to answer it at the starting point. Where are we now? Is the first question. Where are we? Are we a new entrants in the industry? Where are we? Must be answered. Then, where do we want to be in the next 5 years? Between the first question and the second question is what we call in strategy gap analysis. We shall get there as we continue in the modules. That's why we need to continuously follow us on our channel. So where are we now? Where do we want to be? The gaps must be filled. Another question that strategy must answer from the onset is, how do we want to get there? We know where we are, we know where we want to be. How do we want to get there? Strategy must be able to answer it. What will the company be doing to get there? Must be answered. How many staff do we need, and what skill level are required? So these are the strategic planning level, and by the time we continue, we see those differences between the strategic management and strategic planning and the like. Another question that must be answered is, what technology should we adopt, especially in this 21st century? We cannot do away with technology and we want to have a comparative advantage. It's almost impossible now because technology is now an enabler. Then how large do we want to be? You may look at the question as, okay, how large do we want to be? Is that really necessary a question? But I tell you, it's very necessary to know how large we want to be, because it's possible for an organization to grow larger than they actually have capability to manage. So it's important for us to answer how large we want to be from the onset, so that we know how to strategize towards business expansion. Okay, Yangalatunji is talking from G. James Associate. Please like us, subscribe to us. I want to believe you've been enjoying the video, and more are yet to come.